Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. So, hope you are doing well. A day before the examination, we are doing the analysis of Endeavour Open Mock Snap 4. So, we'll be starting with the quant section, then we'll be going for reasoning section, and then we'll see the verbal section. So, let's start with the quant section. So this time around, the con section, the distribution of questions was a little different and a lot different from the last mock. So if I talk about algebra, there were two questions. There were one question from time, speed, and distance. Similarly, we had three questions in data interpretation in the last test. This time around, again, there were three questions. Number systems, we had two questions. PNC plus probability, we had three questions. Now, this time around, we had ratio proportion variation and its applications like averages, partnerships, and allegation mixtures. We had four questions from this complete part. Then percentage profit and loss, it was heavy this time. We had five questions from this part. So again, a paper that most of the people would have liked on in terms of the question distribution, because all the topics mentioned here are mostly relatable to all the students, because everyone likes profit and loss percentages, and the questions from the number system as well as algebra were relatively easy this time around, because in algebra they were both based on linear equation. In number system they were very simple, there was no big theorem used, nothing big used. So let's see the questions. So if I talk about profit and loss, these were the five questions from this section. So five questions, if you see, I cannot term any of these questions as a difficult question. So if you had tried a little bit, you would have got the answer for these all these questions. So I can say the question number five, specifically in this section of percentage plus profit and loss, the question number five, which is a shopkeeper sells 1 kg of rice for to A and as well as to B. This was a little tricky question, I would say. But if I talk about first four questions, they were not tricky and they were very straightforward. So these four questions should have been attempted. The fifth one could have been avoided in terms, or if time permits, should have been done. But again, if you want to get maximum out of it with minimum time, you should have done first four questions of percentage and profit and loss. Now, if I look at the next part, which is ratio proportion variation and its application, we had four questions, right? Four questions. First one was a simple ratio proportion. Second one was from the partnership part. Third one was from mixture part. And fourth one was again from averages. So we had four different topics. We were covering all those topics from ratio proportion variation, one question from each. And again, I would say I would not rate any of these topics as tough and any of these questions as tough. So all these questions were pretty manageable, pretty doable, right? Now, if I talk about the DI part, so DI, we had a very simple DI. This time it was a calculative DI. You had three questions, you had to do some calculations. But again, this was a doable DI. So again, I would say this should also have been attempted. Now, if I talk about PNC plus probability, PNC plus probability, the questions were from two questions were from PNC and one was from probability. The two questions from PNC, there you had to, in the first question, you had to think a little bit, where you were required to find out four classes out of six classes, and then you have to select members from each of the class, right? So that was a simple thought process that should have gone through your mind while doing this question. If I talk about second question, it was a general question, should have been done because it was a part of our exercise, should have been done 3 4 times in the past. So has to be attempted. So this kind of a question should not be given up. And again, the third question as well, which was from the probability, was doable. Now, if I talk about these five questions, these were from other parts. So if I talk about first two questions, they could have been placed in numbers. Third one is from time, speed, distance, and fourth and fifth were from algebra and specifically linear algebra. Both the questions belong to linear equations and they both were very simple. So if I have to mark the quantitative analysis and data interpretation part, I would say there were 13 easy questions. 13 easy questions out of 20, 13 easy, and 7 were moderate. So I can say there were no tough questions or difficult questions were not there. So ideal time should have been 25 to 30 minutes, and that is on very high side. Could have been done in 20 minutes, but again, because of the nature of this subject, I have given you 5 minutes extra. Good attempts should have been 16 and up, because the paper did not had any difficult question. So if you have given the ideal amount of time to this section, you could have easily scored 16 plus question. So now if I talk about score versus percentile, this would be my score versus percentile. So that is 100 percentile would be somewhere around 17 and up. If I talk about 99 percentile, it would be 15.5 marks. If I talk about 98 percentile, which is my optimum requirement or the actual thing that I want, is 13.75 marks out of 20. So that is a good ask. So for 15 questions attempt and one incorrect, that could fetch you 13.75. Then we had 95 percentile at 12 and a half, 90 percentile at 10.5, and 80 percentile at 7 marks. So considering this times quant and data interpretation section, the section was really easy than last time. Now, if I talk about the LR section, so LR section, if you have given the paper, LR section was on the other hand a bit tougher than last times. A bit tougher. Not I would not say it was very tough, but yes, a bit tougher because first of all, the uh, the areas from where the question were asked was completely changed. We had only one question from blood relation. We had only one question from code encoding, where we had five questions last time. We had seven questions from puzzles, and there was some difficulty level. We had two questions from number series, and they both, one of them was just based on your common sense, and the other one was a little trickier. Arrangements, we had four questions from arrangements. So if you see arrangement plus puzzle gives you 11 questions, a big chunk. Visual reasoning, four questions, a very new inclusion. Critical reasoning, only one question. Calendar, only one question. And miscellaneous, two questions, which is one is from time, speed, time and work, where you were given some efficiencies, and the efficiencies of the boss was to be determined on the basis of people getting absent, right? So this was the broad distribution of questions from different topics. Now if I talk about the first puzzle part, this was a puzzle. These are two puzzles. So on the left, this is a puzzle with two questions, and on the right, there is a puzzle with three questions, and there is one puzzle where it was given a case where boyfriends and girlfriends were mentioned, and you had to find the correct number of boyfriends and girlfriends a person could have. So these were the three puzzles which I would give them a moderate difficulty level. So they were moderately difficult in some parts. especially you had to make two cases in the second puzzle, and in the first puzzle also there were a lot of data to be entered, so they were moderate. If I talk about arrangement questions, so this was first set where 8 people, and again this is a moderately difficult question. So moderate to difficult, the difficulty level would be moderate to difficult because you had 2 3 cases in this. So you had to arrange as well as you have to take down all the possible arrangements. And if I talk about the second question, it is from the data sufficiency part, but again you have to understand the arrangement is possible or not. So again this is a data sufficiency arrangement question, so it is a mixture of both. The questions were again moderately difficult. So again, if I see from the last time, the difficulty level is going up. These were the questions from visual reasoning. So if I talk about the question where you were asked to count the cubes, you should have avoided it, because this was a question where everybody would say that they can do it, but again it will take a lot of your time. Or either what you can do is you can count one part and multiply it by 4. So if you can think like this, you could have done it, because if you count one part, the figure is symmetric. So if the figure is symmetric, if you count one part and you multiply it by 4, because it has 4 parts which are equal in nature, so you could have done it. If I talk about the first question where A, B, and C, the lengths and the lengths of the sides are given, this was fairly easy, should have been done. Then if I talk about this next missing figure, this could also have been done. And the next part, it is some kind of a linear equation where if you add it and divide it by 3, you get the required answer, because if you see all figures have 4 circles. If I sum up the squares in all the figures, they come out to be 9. And if I sum up all the triangles in the 3 figures, they sum up to 6. And if you divide everything by 3, you get 4 circles, 3 squares, and 2 triangles. And that is what was required in the final question. Correct? So if you had just observed the figure correctly, you could have done this question, right? And if I talk about this second last set theory question, it was a question where you were given 2 questions. It was a simple set of three different things were to be arranged, which was first puzzle, then there was a data sufficiency question, then there was other third type of a question. So this was not very difficult. A more I can say this was an easy question. Everybody should have given this question a chance and should have solved it. And now if I talk about the miscellaneous question, so there is the first question belongs to coding decoding part. So this was the easiest question on this paper. If I talk about the second question, it was from the series part. It was a little tricky. It required you to solve something. Then third question, it was from the blood relations part. Fourth was a clock question. It was moderately difficult. Fifth question, here you have to find out how you can write 5555 in Roman numerals. Right? You have to write this number into Roman numerals. Now, if you had seen the options, only one option had last position as 5. Only one option. So you could have just negated all the other options. And if I see the sixth question, it is based on the truth liar question. It was a moderately difficult question. Now, if I now plot the difficulty of different parts, so I can say there were 9 easy questions and 15 moderate questions, and only one tough question. So now, if I see the previous times paper where there were 12 easy questions and 11 moderate questions, The difficulty level has increased significantly. So which would hamper my marks for 98 percentile. And so the ideal time has gone from 25 to 30 minutes, and good attempts have gone down from 16 to 40. Right. So last time around it was 16, this time around it was 14 out of 25 questions. And this is my score versus percentile mapping. So for 100 percentile, anything above 19 would fetch you 100 percentile. For a score of 99 percentile, the score should have been 16.5. For 98 percentile, score would be 14. For 95 percentile, the score would be 12.5. And for 90 percentile, the score would be 10.5. And for 80 percentile, the score would be 8. So hope this has helped. So I would like to say you all the best. My best wishes with you for the exam for tomorrow. All the best. And I would like to pass it on to Mruga ma'am for the analysis of verbal part. So hello ma'am.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I'll take over now.
Okay.
All right, everyone. So now that you're done with an analysis of the first two sections, let's talk about the verbal ability section of EOM SNAP 4. If I compare it to EOM SNAP 3, then this test was slightly easier than the previous test. And obviously, the question distribution was quite different from the previous one. So let's take a look at let's take an overview first. Total questions 15 minutes, 1 mark per correct question, as you all know. Ideal time would again be 10 to 12 minutes. If you were to exploit this section fully, then you would take about 10 to 12 minutes. There were 3 vocab based questions with 1 analogy and 2 fill in the blanks. There were 5 grammar and usage based questions. We had sentence correction, fill in the blanks based on prepositions. We had 1 idioms question and 1 punctuation question. And we had 1 parajumble. There were 6 questions based on 1 reading comprehension passage. The questions were a mix of detail based, main idea based, and inference questions. Right? So this passage was comparatively difficult, if I'm comparing it to the previous mock that we've seen. In the previous mock, the passage was extremely easy, and that wasn't the case here, right? Okay, now let's look at all of these subsections. So the overall difficulty level, I can say, is easy to moderate. Okay. Let's talk about the first section, which is reading comprehension. There was one question, the first question, which was almost direct, but it wasn't that easy to locate given that the passage was very lengthy and there was a lot of information that you had to scan through to find your answer. So I can say that the first and the second questions were moderate. The third one was very easy because the answer was very direct. The fourth was moderate, fifth was easy, and sixth was moderate. Now, the third and fifth questions I am claiming as easy because the answers were very directly given. All you had to do was locate them. The first and second were, I would say, moderate. The third was very easy because the answer was directly given. The fifth was a tone question, and the options were very easy to eliminate. Right? It was clearly, a descriptive passage. You can easily eliminate ironical and didactic. You may be confused between analytical and descriptive, but still, I think with so much practice, you can easily eliminate analytical since it's more of a factual passage than an opinion based passage, right? Yes. And sixth was an inference based question, which is why I would say it was moderate, right? The ideal time for this passage would be around 5 minutes. Then we are looking at the vocab based questions now. So the fill in the blanks, the seventh question was, I would say, moderate, right? The 14th question was very easy because it was easy to eliminate the options and the words were all very common. The words were not difficult at all, right? Very commonly used words. All you had to do was understand the context of the sentence. So whenever you have fill in the blanks vocabulary question which are asked in the fill in the blanks format, make sure that you first read the sentence, understand the context, right? And then mark your answer. Without a context, these questions may end up being wrong, even if they are easy, right? Because in this format, the questions are such that the words are not very uncommon. Words are not very difficult. Very often, these are very common words, everyday words, right? So it's all about whether you understand the usage and the context or not. So focus on that, and these questions are easy. The one analogy question, question number 8, was very easy. Oasis is to desert, right? Very, very easy to understand that an oasis is found in a desert, just like a whirlpool is found in water, right? So this was an easy question. Ideal time, 2 minutes maximum. A well-prepared student could even solve this in a minute and a half, maybe, right? Let's talk about the grammar and usage-based question. So there was one question based on punctuations, which was very easy. All you needed was inverted commas because it was a direct speech, right? So this was an easy question. There was one question based on idiom. I would say it was moderate because the idiom was not a very common one. There are some idioms that you use very often, very commonly. This one was not a common idiom, right? So when I say apple pie order, it means in a very systematic, neat and clean order, right? Not a very common usage. Fill in the blanks. There were two fill in the blanks. Both of them were based on prepositions and both of them were very easy, right? There was no complication there. Sentence correction. Um, Even though sentence correction questions tend to be a little difficult, this one was particularly easy because the abstract noun goodwill should not be preceded by any article, correct? Now, this is something that at this point you should be very, very, comfortable with this kind of a concept. And there were three options which all contained the same error. All of them contained, the article error. There was only one option which was different. So that is why this question was very easy to solve and could be solved very quickly also. So I would say that all of these questions should be solved in 3 minutes, right? All of them were very quick questions. So 3 minutes, more than enough. Then let's talk about the logic-based questions. There was just one logic-based question, which is parajumble, the 15th question. I would say this was moderate. Someone might even have wanted to skip this one because this one question alone would probably end up taking 1.5 to 2 minutes, right? Because it was slightly confusing and you may even get confused with the between the options. Okay. So yes, you could either skip this question or if you solved it, it should take about 1.5 to 2 minutes maximum. So that's why this is a moderate to difficult question, right? Now, this is the overall mapping of the difficulty level. There were 8 questions which were easy, 7 moderate, and no difficult questions this time, which is why this was slightly easier than the previous mock. Obviously, you're expected to attempt all 8 easy questions, and out of the moderate ones, I would say 4 to 5 questions were doable. Yes, they would take slightly more time, but doable, right? Keeping that in mind, the expected attempts for a 98 percentile, which is the cutoff for SIBM, 13 attempts with an 80% accuracy, right? A score of about 10 or 10.5 even, that would be a good score. And these are the percentile versus score mapping. 99.5 will be at a 13.5. 99 at 12, 98 at a score of 10.5, 95 at a score of 9.5, 90 at a score of 9, and 80 percentile at a score of 8 out of 15, right? So this is the overall analysis of the VARC section of EOM SNAP 4. Now, keeping in mind all the 3 sections and their analysis, let's take a look at the college cutoffs. For this particular mock, the cutoff for SIBM Pune would be 38.75. For SCM HRD will be 37.5. For SIBM Bangalore would be 36.25. And for SIIB would be 33.5. So this was an analysis of EOM SNAP 4. I hope this was helpful, students, and all the best for those of you who are taking the test tomorrow. Bye-bye.